Well, good afternoon. Thank you again to everybody who could be here today. I really do appreciate it. Really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day for us to share with you a bit about what we're doing here at Brickhouse, some of the changes that have happened. I understand that some of you have been supporters of Brickhouse for a very long time. So for some of you, this is a reintroduction to what it is that we're doing. Some maybe not supporters of Brickhouse in the past, or maybe don't really know what it is that we're doing now since we have made the merger. So hopefully that'll answer some of the questions you have and hopefully be a useful part of your day. I feel like it'd be good for it to be a useful part of your day. So my name's Adam, in case those of you who may not know. I'm a marriage and family therapist, and then also I oversee the Brickhouse Program here of Love and Shepherd Ministries. The marriage and family therapist part will be important a little bit later, because try to do some of the things we're doing without somebody who's a licensed counselor, you get in trouble, and nobody likes that. So that'll make sense in a little bit why I shared that with you. And I've been doing public speaking of some sort consistently since I was, for a very long time now, and still I get just a little bit nervous every single time. Just a little bit nervous, especially when it's a new crowd or people I don't know very well. It feels like my heart beats a little bit faster, palms get a little sweaty. So if I pass out during this, just Tom, if you could just come take over, that'd be great. I'd really appreciate that. I don't think that'll happen, but you never know. It's been a strange year, so who knows what'll happen. But to help with that, I found a pattern of giving public speeches, a plan for that I think will be helpful, and I think will frame what it is that we're doing here today. I found this from somebody named Don Miller, who is smarter than me and good at giving public presentations. And he talks about every good speech has at least 3 parts, and I added a 4th one because I wanted to use 4 fingers instead of 3. I don't know why, but so the 3 parts of a good speech were an intent. Right? You have to have a purpose for your speech, otherwise you're just wasting everybody's time. There has to be some sort of obstacle, something that's getting in the way of reaching the goal that you want to reach. You have to have a plan. Okay, so how are we going to overcome this obstacle? And then the part that we've added here today is a call to action. Something to invite others to be a part of what it is that we're doing. And that's part of what we'll do today. At the end of our time here, we'll give a call to action, an opportunity for you to find out how you can be a part of what it is that we're doing to impact lives in our community. As far as intent goes, I think the biggest thing, if I could put into one word what it is the majority of families that come to us are looking for, it would be stability. Just trying to make their lives just a little bit more stable. And I'm sure that's something that we've all experienced, whether it be in our personal lives, trying to make things just a little bit more stable. Maybe in our family lives, we want our relationships with our spouses or our kids to be just a little bit more stable than they were before. And in business, things stay the same for at least one day, maybe, just one day. We all want that stability. And if we're not careful, trying to find that stability, we end up looking in false ways. That doesn't make any sense. We start trying to find it in false stability. Things that we think will offer our lives stability, but in the end, don't really offer our lives stability. In fact, they usually make our lives just a little bit more chaotic, and a little bit more stressful, more detrimental to us. Majority of families and teams that we work with, they've made decisions like that. They've made decisions where they're trying to find stability but end up not finding stability. Well, that could be reasons of their own doing or things that have happened to them. So what we want to try to do is offer stability. Now, there are many obstacles to this. Many things get in the way of that stability. And for the Brickhouse families, we work primarily with foster and adoptive teens and families that have either fostering or adopted hard-to-place teens or adopted children into their homes. We do quite a bit with that, and I'll share more about that as we go on. But for families working with this particular population, the obstacles are maybe just a little bit bigger. If you bring somebody into your home who you don't know hasn't been raised the same way that you have been raised or raised the same way the rest of your kids have been raised, there's an adjustment period there. There's a time where they're adjusting to a completely new environment, something that is unheard of to them. The way I think of it, I haven't traveled a ton, but after high school I went to Nicaragua for just a little bit of time on a mission trip. and spent some time in the market there, and everything was confusing to me. Everything was wild and crazy. They even told us that as we were walking down the street, it's different here in the capital city of Nicaragua than it is in America. If somebody honks at you and then they hit you with their car, that's on you. Like, that's your fault because they honked. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? That's weird. I don't know what that is. But for them, that was their environment. That was the world in which they lived. And for teens that are coming out of or children that are coming out of a difficult place, a hard space in their life, coming into a family that isn't that hard of a place, right? All family has their struggles, but families are a little more stable than others. For them, it's a bit of a culture shock. It's a big adjustment period. It's something that's difficult to do. And that's an obstacle to stability that we're looking for. So we try to help with that. We try to do some things to help fix that, bring about stability. Now, LSM Brickhouse is a part of a larger thing that is Love and Shepherd Ministries. In Love and Shepherd Ministries works primarily in 3 different places. Most of you probably know this already. Some of you may even know it better than I do. In Haiti, we work with vulnerable kids and try to find forever families for them. Families where they can grow up. They become culture changers for Christ in their nation. In Ethiopia, primarily working with single mothers to help them take ownership for their lives and make a difference for their lives. And that piece of ownership is huge, and that's something that you'll see with everybody coming from a hard spot. Helping them develop some sort of ownership for their life is a phenomenally empowering thing for them. It's something that they can push away at times. They can try to run from at times, but eventually, once that sticks, that makes all the difference in the world. To realize that they have some agency over their lives is a powerful, powerful thing. And here in the U.S., I do a few things, but the thing we'll be talking about today is the Brickhouse Program specifically, where we are supporting foster and adoptive families. We do that in three primary ways. We do, we'll talk more about these as we go on, but we have what we call structured foster care, where we have homes for hard-to-place teens. We have a home here in Bluffton that is open, a home, farm home that will be open soon. We provide free counseling to foster and adoptive families in the community. And we're finding ways for new community engagement, for people in the community to get involved in the lives of foster and adoptive teens, or really just troubled teens to begin with, regardless of what circumstances they're coming from. Trying to find ways to help them get involved in the community. Now, Brickhouse itself has been around for quite some time. It was founded by Tom and Patrice Felger many years ago. In 2019, in August 2019, we merged with Love and Shepherd Ministries, Brickhouse did. And the reason for that merger, there's multiple reasons for it, but if I could boil it down just to a sentence or two, or a word or two, it would be, we wanted to be good stewards. We wanted to take the resources that we have and use them to the best of their ability. At the time, we were having a really difficult time convincing families to utilize our services. We were a residential home for troubled teen boys ages 13 to 17, and families would send their boys to come live with us for 12 to 18 months, depending on the situation. And we would work with them, we'd work with that family, and we would help them find the stability that they were looking for so they could re-enter into their family in a healthy way. And we did that for a long time. We helped a lot of young men and a lot of families in that. But there, towards the end of our time as Brickhouse Family Ministries, we saw the numbers of young men coming into our program decrease, which made funding extremely difficult. Right? We were trying to help people, but because our numbers were so low, our cost per kid was extremely high. And that made it extremely difficult. Since the time of the merger, we've been able to expand and help more people now than we were before, and we're able to do it at a lower cost. And just to give you an idea of some of the numbers, the Brickhouse and even some other organizations who do similar type of work their numbers are about $100,000 per kid that they're investing. If you break down the salaries of everybody involved, all the expenses of running the ministry, all the overhead, it breaks down to about $100,000 per kid for trying to help those young people. Under the new model, the way we're doing it now, we have our budget set up in such a way that we only need another $75,000 to fill out the budget from the local business community. And that's a pretty substantial difference. And for us, it's not just about the numbers, but it's about how can we be good stewards of the resources God has blessed us with the institutional knowledge that we have of helping kids and the finances that we've been blessed to receive. How can we make sure that we're using that investment that others have made into us in the most impactful way? And we feel like the program that we've put together does that. We're able to help a lot of kids for a pretty minimal cost, and we're extremely happy about that. And we'll talk more about that as we go on, but one thing that hasn't changed about Brickhouse would be the passion that we have of working with young people and working with families. And to share a little bit more about that, I've asked Tom Felger to come and share about his continued passion for the Brickhouse program. So we'll give Tom a hand as he comes.
Thanks, Adam. And thank you all for taking time out to come and be a part of this luncheon. We appreciate it. Adam was sharing about the efficiency of how we're doing things, and I want to just kind of build on that and share with you what my heart has always been from the beginning when we started working with young people. There's a certain type of, I don't really want to say type of young person, but there's a certain young person that fits within the program now that we're able to impact that with the old model they probably would have never had the opportunity to be impacted, because in the model that we did previously, parental involvement was a key element to it. And not every young person, and certainly not the ones that I've encountered in my past, has a parent that's willing to come and be a part of that process and work towards healing and restoration. So I just want to share with you a story of a young person that I encountered that really gave me a heart and a passion for this ministry, and I think maybe it'll make more sense. So Patrice and I had wrestled with what the next step was and had been praying about some things and felt led to start a mentoring program. And we were at Life Church at the time, and the church allowed us to use the basement, which was the old shop class, and to start this mentoring program. And Trout Mosier was part of that. Trout and I and Corey Ivins and L.A. Brown, we all kind of just had a passion for these kids that run around the neighborhood and wanted to see what we could do to help. So we started this mentoring program, and that was in 04 and 05, and ran the program for about 2 years. The first year we had about 100 kids come through the doors. All of them were from broken homes, and it was chaos and good nights when the police didn't show up. Am I Trout about for me? It was just a lot of brokenness. And so the second year we said, you know what, we're going to do something different. We're going to do 6 boys and 8 girls. And we're going to really try to get into their lives and understand why, things are so difficult for them. And I've shared this story before, so forgive me if you've heard pieces of it or whatnot. But there was a certain young man that came to me, and he said, "Tom, I got this court thing tomorrow, and I want you to come to it." I was like, "A court thing?" I said, "Well, what's it about?" "I kind of got in trouble at school." I said, "Oh." He said, "I was fighting, and now I got to go to court." I was like, "Okay, I'll go." So I went to this court thing and got there a little bit early, and it was here in Wells County, and went up. I think it was second floor, and I'm standing there in the foyer area there, whatever you call that, and the elevator door opens, and this guy walks out, and he's this big dude. I mean, he's tatted from head to toe, and I'm looking up to him, and I'm pretty tall. And he gets off the elevator, and I was like, that has to be his dad. It looks just like him. And so I'll call this boy Derek. And so I went up to this guy. I said, "Hey, you must be Derek's dad." He said, "Yeah, who are you?" And I introduced myself. And so we get this program we do on Wednesday nights, and Derek's been coming to it. And he asked me if I'd come to this. And he said, "This place gives me the creeps." I said, "Yeah, like the courthouse?" He's like, "Yeah, every time I come here, they take me to jail." I'm like, oh, sorry, I don't think they will today. But so we go in, and Well, before we go in, I guess I was feeling brave because I asked the guy, I said, you know, I'm just curious. Derek's been getting in trouble in school, you know, and I'm just curious if you have an idea what do you think his problem is? And he says, it's his blankety blank stepbrother. And I said, oh, really? What's up with that? He said, well, he just needs a pounding. He said, he could take him. I was like, well, he's like, the stepbrother's like 17 and he's like 14 and you're telling him to hit his stepbrother and he's in trouble for fighting at school. And the guy throws his hands up. He says, that's not my fault. He said, I always tell him you never fight at school. You always wait till you get off school property to settle the score. Now this is his advice. I'm not kidding you. This is literally his dad's advice to him. And so we go into court, and I remember I was there, just kind of thinking I'm just a bystander, and I remember the judge said he's got to be back in 2 weeks, but he's out of school for 2 weeks. So either he's you guys, like, where's he going to stay? Is he going to stay with mom or is he going to stay with dad? And his dad said, well, he can't stay with me. And his mom said, well, he can't stay with me because if I miss another day of work, I'm fired. So the judge was like, well, where's he going to stay? And his mom says, I think he needs to stay with Tom. Points at me. I'm like, okay. So it was one of those prayers like, Lord, am I going to get in trouble for this? You know? And at some point, I called Patrice, and she was great with it. I don't know if I had already committed at that point or not, but she was good with it. And so I went to his house afterwards, and I asked him to grab some clothes, and we'd head on over to my house, and literally everything that he brought with him that he had for clothes fit into a Walmart bag, and that's what he brought to my house. And I mean, that was just pretty broken over that you know, he didn't. I mean, he's living in a house trailer with 2 satellite dishes, 3 gaming systems, you know, a cell phone with a smashed screen on it, and you know, a couple pair of those snake pants that I just keep wanting to keep yanking them up, you know. But that was his life. And when he got to our place, he played tractors with my son on the floor. Like, he would drive him around like a little kid, you know. And he's 14 years old, but he never had that growing up. He never, you know, he'd missed that. And so we had a great time with him. We really did. And he was so respectful. We were like, it's just hard to picture him, you know, fighting and getting in fights and stuff. And his LD teacher called me. She found out that he was staying with us, and she said, hey, I know he's out of school for a couple weeks. Would it be okay if I meet him at the library and help him with his reading? Because he's reading at like a 4th grade level. So that he doesn't fail. I said, oh, that would be great. I really appreciate that. You know, the community's trying to come around. And he did that a couple times and was going really good. He was starting to get excited about it, and called his mom, said, hey, you know what, I rode a horse today, I did this, I did that. My teacher's meeting me at the library, and we're reading. And she said, well, what are you doing that for? He's like, I don't know. They told me I should go to the library. And so I get on the phone with his mom, and she balls me out because, well, he ain't getting credit for that. He ain't going if he ain't getting credit for that. Like, he's flunking. I don't get it. You know, I think we're trying to help here, but there was this great disconnect. And so that's kind of how it went. And at the end of that couple weeks, he got sentenced. He had to go to juvie. I don't remember, maybe 6 months to a year. I went and visited him. It was really tough to see this guy in shackles and chains, you know, and because he was sitting on the floor playing with my 3-year-old son. You know, it's just kind of it was a little overwhelming at the time. But so he does his time in juvie, correctional institution that's supposed to help get him squared away and, you know, get him back on the right track. He gets out, and Patrice calls me and said, hey, you know, Derek was here today. He was on his way home. He just got released. He's on his way home. He said he's going to get in touch with you. I was like, awesome. That's great, you know. Eager to hear from him and see how he was doing. 9 days later, I get a call from his mom. She said, hey, Derek's in trouble again. He's got to go to court. I was like, what? Yeah, 9 days later. So I go to the court, go to his hearing thing, and they've got him all cuffed and everything again, and go in and it was really interesting. I actually got called to the stand. I had to get sworn in and all that stuff, and the judge he looks at me and he says, "Mr. Felger, what's this kid's problem?" Great, I'm on oath. Thank God his dad isn't here yet. He was late. His dad came in right after I said this, but I said, "Your Honor, it's his environment. I mean, he lived with me for a couple weeks, and I've known him, and that's his environment." And he said, "You know what? I've been sitting this bench 20-some years, and he said, you nailed it." He said, "I haven't heard truth like that in the 20-some years I've been sitting this bench." I knew he'd been sitting the bench 20 years because I sat in that same seat 20 years ago asking the judge not to send me to juvie for something I did. So the difference was that my dad made me own up to it. And I had a dad that cared and loved me enough, and enough structure in my home that, boys will be boys, but you don't knock his block off. You go make it right. And some of these kids don't have that. They don't have anyone in their family or in their home to give them that structure and that direction. And so I told the judge, I said, the irony is his mom pipes up and says, "I want him to go live with Tom again." And I was like, oh boy. And I just knew. I said, "You know what? I've got young kids at home. They need their dad. I can't take him again. He can't just come live with me, and it's not the right time for our family. But I'm going to build a place in this community." And at the time, I said it's going to be called House of Hope. We were already in the process of pulling the pieces together, and we're going to have a home for vulnerable kids in our community that need a place to be. And that's kind of what the passion that I had that got House of Hope, Brickhouse, and now Brickhouse LSM started. But that young person, I guess my point in this is that young person, if you look at his life and the opportunities that he has and the family that he has, he would not have had a chance to be in Brickhouse under the current structure, because his family would not have been able. They would not have come alongside of him and asked for that healing and restoration. But the kids that we're serving now certainly fit that mold as far as the most vulnerable in our community. A lot of them have experienced trauma that we really can't even imagine. I could stand here for hours and tell you stories. It's just, once you see it, it breaks your heart, and you really want to do something about it to make a difference. I just thought maybe that story would resonate with some of you, and I appreciate the opportunity to share. So I think that's all I got. Thanks, Adam.
Tom. Yeah, so we're finding new and unique ways to reach young men like that, reach young women like that, who are in some really hard spots, sometimes, again, as a product of their environment. And sometimes product of their environment sets them up to make some decisions that maybe the rest of us wouldn't make. So if we can help them find a different environment, help them start to take responsibility for their own actions. Like Tom was saying, he had a dad who came alongside him and helped him own up to what it is that had happened. If we can do that, if we can provide that kind of structure in their lives, we believe we can make a huge difference in our community. And we can see this start to change some patterns of dysfunction that have been going on for a very, very long time. And I think it's exciting to see what we're doing. So we're doing that in 3 big ways, like I said. We're doing the structured foster care. We're doing the free counseling for foster and adoptive youth and their families in our community. And then also finding ways for community engagement for mentoring and career training. And I've been working with teens since, for almost 20 years now that I've been working with teens. It's hard to tell because my hair is so dark and young looking. It's not actually. But anyways, and it seems like there's a lot of times working with teens, we can either go really deep with the teen, we can provide a lot of support for a few teens, or we can go really wide. We can cast a big net and we can reach a lot of teens all at once. We can't go very deep with them because the resources are spread so thin. It seems like the program that we've built and are continuing to build in here has the capacity to spread a really wide net and help a lot of people, but also still has enough bandwidth within it to go really deep with these kids too, and provide them with the long-term support and structure that they need. Most of these young people that we're working with, it's not a matter of 6 weeks, 10 weeks, and then everything's fine. Go about your day, let's help somebody else. For some, it may be a lifetime of building relationships with others in the community to set them up for success. And the way that we're doing things now, we have the ability to do that, and that's very exciting. At the core of who we are is still that verse. It was such a big part of Brickhouse in the past. Jeremiah 29:11, "For I know the plans I have for you, declare the Lord. Plans for hope and a future, plans to prosper you, not to harm you." I get the words mixed up every single time. I don't know why. But that's what we want to see. We want to see these young people succeed and impact our community in a positive way. To see them become the men and women that God has created them to be. So who are some of the kids that we're helping? Like Tom was saying, there's some who are greatly impacted by poverty. Kids who are in some chaotic or sometimes dangerous situations. For some, they've come out of those situations and now they're in families that love them. And they don't know how to respond to that. They can't understand that. To have the concept and to sink down deep into you that people actually care for you and they're not going to push you away the first time you mess up. It's extremely hard for many of these young people to work through. And to live in chaos your entire life and then suddenly come into a spot that's stable and secure and loving feels, like I said at the beginning, it feels like a culture shock. It feels like an entirely different world. And you see things happen where you put all these positive things in front of a young person and they just continually reject them and they continually push them away. And it's very easy to step back and say, like, well, what is going on here? Like, I'm trying to do something good for you. Like, I've offered you something amazing. Like, will you take it, please? And it's hard to understand that sometimes it's just hard to take that thing. There's a few reasons why that is, like environment, again, fear, the unknown. What's it going to be like? Even though this over here was chaotic and uncertain, at least it was familiar. At least I knew a bit of what to expect. This over here is completely new, so how do I adjust to that? So that's part of what we're doing. One young man I worked with, similar to the story Tom shared, I was talking to him about, what do you want to be when you grow up? What's your hope? What's your future look like? And he looked at me, stone cold in the face and said, "I'm probably going to go to jail." It's like, okay, that's a fantastic high mark to set. I was like, tell me, really, why is that? He was 12 or 14 years old, somewhere in there. I said, why do you think that's what's going to happen? He said, because my dad's in jail, my grandpa went to jail, my mom's in jail, so I'm probably going to end up in jail too. And in that kind of environment, without support, without help, he's probably right. It's probably where he was going to be. Again, for many of these young people, it's years, it's cycles of dysfunction, and we have the opportunity to help change that. Without the support, the numbers don't look good. Over 50% of them will end up in some sort of drug abuse. 75% or so will end up in teen pregnancy, and less than 3% will end up earning a college degree. And again, the contributing factors to the problem will just continue without the help. So we want to try to do that because that's not good for the entire community. So some specifics about how we're doing that. One is structured foster care. Some of you may be wondering, what is structured foster care? That's an excellent question. I'm glad you asked. I'll see if I can explain it to you. So it's something unique that we're doing. It's not being done anywhere else in the state of Indiana. There's a few other places, one in Colorado, one I think maybe in Missouri, that are doing something similar to what it is that we're doing. But as far as the state of Indiana goes, we're the only facility doing this. And we have a unique relationship with DCS and a local licensing agency that is allowing us to build a program that we think eventually can be scalable. Once we work out all the kinks, we're able to spread it to others and maybe help others start something similar also. But right now what it is, hard to place teens who are hard to place for a variety of reasons. Some could be just a matter of age. Fostering teens is difficult. They're not as cute and cuddly as little babies are. Some of it could be behaviors. Many of them have been in the foster care system for many years. And throughout that time, they've learned some really negative patterns of behavior that to them are nothing more than survival skills. Right? That's what it looks like to them. To us, we look at it and we say, well, That's a terrible idea. Why would you do that? It's the only way I know. And for 5-6 years, this is the way that I've got through. One young lady that we're working with has been in foster care for 5 or 6 years, and she's been in 12 to 15, I can't remember for sure, 12 to 15 different foster care placements. She's just been bounced around from home to home to home to home. In large part, again, some of it's her behavior. So we want to help her change that, help her change the way that she's thinking, help her understand that she has the power to choose a different response. So we currently have 3 young ladies that are living in our foster care home, structured foster care home, here in downtown Bluffton. And continue to work with them, help them grow, help them develop. It's not something that's always easy. It's extremely difficult. But once we can help a young lady start to think about their future differently, that's when we can start to change things. One young lady that we're working with, and Kevin and Michelle, our house parents, were going to be here today, but weren't able to because of trying to help. One of the girls isn't feeling great, so they're with her right now. But one of the young ladies that we're working with opened up and started talking about what she wants to do with her future, how she wants to help other people. And this amazing vision that she has for her life of how she wants to help other young ladies who have maybe made some poor decisions or have had terrible things happen to them. And she has this plan laid out of how she's going to do that. And great, okay. And then able to take that and say, yeah, this little school thing over here that you think isn't a big deal, maybe we should tighten that up just a little bit. Going to further education, become a doctor, maybe let's get through high school, right? Let's see how that works. Maybe put a little bit more effort into that. But for her to have the space and the ability and the stability to actually start to dream like that, to actually start to think that maybe her future could look differently than everything else that she's seen for years and years and years, that makes a big difference. And for her, whether she achieves that goal or not, at least she's thinking that way now. And if she's moving towards that, she'll hit something positive, something good. It may not be exactly that, but she'll hit something good. So we have the house here in town, and then we also, like I said earlier, we're looking for a family to live out at the Brickhouse farmhouse. And that will be a home for 4 to 5 hard-to-place teen boys in foster care. So we're actively seeking that right family. It's a unique thing. It's not something for everybody. We understand that it's a unique call and a unique ministry. So we're looking for that family currently. The second thing we're doing is the free counseling for foster and adoptive youth. Since we've made the merger back in August of 2019, we've been able to provide over 600 hours of free counseling to these families. Many of these families would not be able to afford that if it weren't offered to them for free. We have I'm doing 15 to 20 sessions a week. This is why the marriage and family therapist part makes sense. Can't really do counseling with people. People get mad at you for that. Anyways, 15 to 20 sessions per week. I have about 23 different individuals that we're working with right now on a weekly or bi-weekly basis based on where they are in the program or where they are in counseling. Some came in and they started to be met every week, and it was very intense and it was very difficult, and then things started to settle, and now we're meeting every other week, and eventually we'll move on to where they don't need to come to counseling anymore. And that'll be pretty positive. But again, this may sound like a small thing, but for these families, this wouldn't take place if we weren't able to offer it to them at no cost. One family in particular, they have 6 kids altogether. They adopted 2 younger ones who came into their family. And then after they adopted them in, one of the biological children they had a hard time adjusting to that. And think about that. If you're a 14, 15-year-old kid and your life is going pretty good, and then all of a sudden you have a 4 or 5-year-old brother or sister, that's a difficult thing. I can remember when my little brothers were born, and I didn't really like them that much for a little while because they kind of messed up my world. Mom and Dad kind of liked me. And then after the younger siblings came, I don't really care about Adam anymore. Tyler's cooler. If you knew Tyler, you'd understand. He's like that. That guy. He lives in Arizona, unfortunately. Otherwise, I'd make fun of him in front of you, but it's not here. Anyways, but think about that for a young person. Maybe family's kind of tough already, but then they bring in these other kids with a strong desire to help and desperately love their kids. This young man started to exhibit some pretty negative behaviors. He just had a hard time adjusting to things. There were some underlying things that were there already with him as far as behavioral issues go, but then you introduce this new dynamic into the family relationship, and it changed completely, and everything got elevated. So we're able to work with that young man and help him start to think differently, start to act differently, start to slow down just a little bit. There's a great quote that I try to use with the young people I work with. It's from Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor. He talks about how between stimulus and response, there's a space. And in that space, you have the power to choose your response. And started to work with him slowly over time, where he started to understand that he had a choice to make in between stimulus, when something made him mad, and his response. He had a way he could choose to behave, to act differently in that situation. Through that, he was able to increase his ability to control himself. Self-control was increased. And then eventually, Mom came back and said that, I feel like I have my son back again. As she's crying, that I really love him again. Like, I've always loved him, but I really love him again. He's a joy to be around again. The behaviors were getting in the way of the personality of who he was. But because we were able to offer this counseling to them that they wouldn't have been able to afford otherwise, with 6 other kids in their home, we're able to make a pretty positive impact in their life. It's not a small thing for a mom to say, I finally feel like I have my son back, and I love raising him again. That's a huge thing for that family. Third thing we're doing is the community engagement. This got slowed down just a little bit as we weren't able to meet with people, weren't able to do things like this anymore. But we're looking to find ways to help other leaders in our community to come be a part of the lives of the young people we're working with. I'm fairly confident that many of you, like Tom, have similar stories where maybe you didn't always make the best decisions in your life, or other leaders in the community maybe didn't always make the best decisions in their lives. And if these young people can start to see that it is possible to start to do things differently and have actual positive role models for that, and build relationships beyond myself or beyond the house parents and other people working with these young people, to give them a bigger vision for their future, that'll make a huge difference. And we've seen it in small degree based on limited access to doing things because of COVID. But we're seeing this work already. We've been able to provide some unique photography lessons with the girls that they love, and they have those with them. Have plans to do pottery stuff with them with a local organization. But trying to find ways to help the community be involved in mentoring and providing career training for these young people has the potential, again, to make a huge difference for these young people. And again, a lot of it is still things that we're building, but we're seeing impact being made already. For those 600 hours of counseling, for those 15 to 23 people that I'm meeting with, for the 3 girls living in the home currently, and the boys that will soon be at the farm, like, we're seeing positive things happen already. It's just the beginning. So it's something we're excited about. And again, we also still have the farm and the farm store. In the farm and farm store may seem, again, like this is kind of something that we're doing on the side, but it's providing a great opportunity for these young ladies to start to learn work skills as they're going out to the farm store and they're stocking the freezers and they're making things work. Things are working well there. And eventually we'll have young men chasing cattle with us again, because there's nothing better than chasing cattle with a young man. Actually, there's a few things better than that, a few things less scary also, but there's something to be learned in a job well done. To actually see that you did something because you worked hard, good things happen. That's a positive life lesson for these young people. So that's why those things are still there, and they provide tasty meats for all of us to enjoy. But the bigger part is what they're doing for the ministry and what they're doing to impact the lives of other people. So I said at the beginning that there would be a final piece of this, the call to action. Again, the thing that we're trying to do is offer support and stability for these families. Help these families who are doing extremely difficult work of raising teens in foster or adoptive care, young people in foster or adoptive care, and help them find just a little bit of stability. And we have a program that is doing that already. We're seeing impact already. And we're seeing that we're able to do it without breaking the bank, so to speak. We're able to do it in a pretty cost-effective way that is still making a pretty significant impact on these lives of these young people. We also know that without this support, the cycles of chaos and dysfunction Like, they don't change by themselves. Like, a system doesn't change all by itself unless it's acted upon by something else outside of that system. And that's what families are. That's what our lives are. They're a combination of systems. And I grew up in the family that I grew up in, and that impacted me and that shaped me. And I wouldn't be where I am today if it weren't for the people who came alongside and supported me as I went on. My biological dad left before I was ever even born. My mom was 16 or 17. Numbers are really hard. Everybody that works with me now knows that. She was 16 or 17 when she had me. If it weren't for the other people that came and became a part of my life and became the part of my life of my mother and supported her, I wouldn't be doing what it is that I'm doing today. The system that I was living in wouldn't have changed unless other people acted upon it and helped it make a significant difference. Some of those people were family. Some of those people were people outside of my family, involved in the church and in other organizations. But we have an opportunity to provide something on a much larger scale and help many, many other young men and young ladies that we've mentioned here today. Otherwise, that cycle of chaos and dysfunction, it just continues. And we've seen what that does to our community. It's not great for a community. So I ask that you would prayerfully consider how you might be able to help with that. Like I said, we have a budgeted number of $75,000, which is only about 45% of our total budget for the program that we're trying to raise from local businesses. So if you could prayerfully consider how you may be able to help with that, that would be fantastic. Have some friends that are going to pass out some paperwork explaining, giving some of the highlights of the information that we covered today, and then also giving you more information about how you could possibly be part of that. And here in the next couple of weeks, you'll be receiving a letter from us with some more information about how you might be able to help. And again, maybe it's financial support. Maybe it's supported by being a mentor, working with these young people in a more individual, one-on-one basis. Whatever it may be, we greatly appreciate your consideration supporting us. We're excited about what's happening. We're excited about what's already happened. But we know that this is just the beginning of something that we think is going to make a pretty significant impact on our community. So, again, thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. I know it's kind of rainy. I think on the invitation we mentioned a possible tour of the farm. If you would like to do that, let me know. I have muck boots at the farm for me and maybe a couple of other pairs to share with somebody else. I don't know for sure. But if you would like to do that, please let me know. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. But thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.